Hi Facebook, hi Instagram, happy Feeling Fab Friday. I'm coming to you live and I'm happy to be with you all today. And today we're going to talk about a really important topic that can be taboo and even something that people have a lot of shame around and don't want to voice or discuss, and that is mental health. And we're going to talk about it in relation to minerals specifically and other health components that you need to know about. So this is something that's really important. Hold on, there we go. My video was paused on Instagram. I wonder if I'm hooked up to I think I am. Sorry about that. But it's something that is really important and affects everything in your life. And if it's not addressed properly, it can lead to more issues down the line. So we have to understand what role minerals play in mental health to give ourselves a bit of explanation on things, okay? So it's really important to understand this is not about character, it's about chemicals and understanding what's going on in the body. So at a certain basic level, your body needs certain minerals and nutrients to express themselves in a certain way, okay? So we're going to talk about the mineral perspective first, and then I'm going to talk about methylation. But at a mineral level, your body needs the main macro minerals just to function, okay? So I've talked about them before. They are calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. And those minerals are needed to just be the building blocks of your body. And of course, we have other minerals that come into play, but just in relation to those, when you have extremely high levels of calcium or something like a calcium shell, your emotions are kind of numbed and dimmed and pushed down in a way, kind of like to protect you. So you'll see people who've gone through a lot of trauma or stress emotionally have that calcium shell as a form of protection. It's the body's way of protecting them from over emotionalizing things, okay? So you can see that happen to someone physically when they're in that trauma, that the calcium will be released from the bones and their teeth and be free flowing around the body to protect a shield almost from their own emotions. And then it starts to be excreted in the soft tissue and stored in the soft tissue and start to calcify things, which can cause problems. So when I see someone who is more in that depressed state, kind of numb emotionally, usually I see their levels of calcium to be really high. This can also be a fact though for someone who has 4 lows, which is when all those minerals are low. They're calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. They can also be at that really depleted state and struggle with depression and those type of issues. So on the other hand, anxiety, when you look at sodium, potassium, anxiety is closely related to those minerals. So people who have high levels of sodium and potassium, sodium more than anything, they will have more of that anxious emotional reaction. So when you're first exposed to the stressor, when you're going through something traumatic, oftentimes the sodium is in relation to the adrenals, and the adrenals will be working really hard to give you in that fight or flight, and they'll pump that sodium level up in your body, and it's relational to the adrenals. So oftentimes if people are in the acute stress, when they come to see me on their test, I will see those sodium levels really high. I also see sodium levels really high in someone who has a lot of chronic inflammation, and it will also raise sodium. And that will give them more of that anxiety, reactive, anger kind of perspective, okay? So it's really important to get tested so that you see exactly what's going on and you're not trying to address something that isn't there or exasperating a problem that is there. And that cannot happen from just blanketly recommending supplements to anybody and taking whatever so-and-so is taking. No, we need to look at what your body is doing, how it's expressing itself minerally, and then support it where we need, either to put the calcium back in the bone, raise the sodium and potassium levels so you have a little bit more of that energy, metabolism, and adrenal function to function and help your emotions. And also, if that sodium level is really high and you're in that chronic fight or flight, we need to bring the sodium down and make sure that we have proper magnesium support and all the other things that can be depleted when that mineral is off. So every mineral functions with every other mineral, and it's very important that you get tested so we see what's going on instead of just guessing and throwing stuff at yourself. If you're in that calcium low metabolism, slow oxidizer, high calcium state, putting multivitamins and even protein shakes and things that have calcium and that stuff in it is going to exacerbate your problem. You need to step away from anything that says everybody should take this or do this. It's just not true. We need to be individualized, okay? So that's the first component in mental health that has to do with minerals, is understanding that. The next is the gut. and understanding how the gut plays a role and what bacteria flourishes, good bacteria versus bad bacteria, and how that affects the brain as well. So it's really important to understand your gut health. GI map test will tell us a little bit more whether you have dysbiosis or overgrowth of bad bacteria, or how your good bacteria is doing, which is really the most important part. But the good bacteria can't flourish while there's bad bacteria, infections, parasites, etc. flourishing. So we need to kill those off and then build up your good bacteria. But to go back to the minerals, okay, the sodium levels is what determines your stomach acid as well. The potassium. All that is in conjunction with each other, sodium and potassium. So if you don't have the proper levels of that, you're not producing enough stomach acid, and you're not absorbing your minerals in your foods and your things that you're eating, and you're not allowing that process to happen. So it's really important that we look at the minerals first. I do that along with the GI map so I can see the full picture, but just to do the GI map and not to do minerals is doing a disservice to yourself, and it's really important to do this in the right order. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is methylation, and this is a really important status of your body to determine whether you have some of these mental health issues like anxiety, bipolar, depression, even schizophrenia, those type of things. The methylation is a biochemical process responsible for dozens of chemical reactions in the body and the brain. Okay, not only is it essential to physical and mental health, but it also influences an individual's characteristics and traits. Okay, so undermethylation, which is somebody who doesn't methylate well, is associated with people who are perfectionism, high accomplishment, OCD tendencies, and they have a lot of seasonal allergies because it has to do with the histamine levels that are in their body. So on the other hand, people who are high methylators or over methylating have a tendency to have really good social skills and those artistic musical abilities, but they have a lot of chemical and food sensitivities, and they have very high anxiety. So these severe imbalances in methylation really contribute seriously to mental health issues. So a lot of you may have heard of like good genetic testing that'll test for MTHFR and other SNPs that may be in your genes. And that is helpful to a point, but it's also limited in its ability to accurately determine the overall effect of these individual mutations and what they're doing in your actual body. So learning your methylation status is really important and critical for the treatment of things like autism, anxiety, behavior disorder, depression, bipolar, eating disorders, those type of things. We have to look at the methylation levels and see what your body's doing. So I really want to direct people to a man named Dr. Manassa, who really specializes in this, and he has a clinic for patients who are experiencing these mental health issues, and really dives into the methylation and helps you understand it, and really develops an individual protocol for people who are struggling with this, of the nutrients and amino acids and things that they're missing. So literally the brain is going to be influenced, those neurotransmitters are going to be influenced on what is happening at your level of your methylation. Now I can see this on the Dutch test that I offer, but really the best way that's the most accurate would be a whole blood histamine or SAMe to SAH ratio blood test, okay? And like I said, this methylation status is really critical to determining your biochemistry, and the whole blood histamine test can measure the effects of the SNPs that are actually happening in your individual body, where just the genetic testing for MTHFR, things like that, will focus on the individual SNPs. And, you know, just for example, MTHFR is something that people know a lot about, and in some people who have that genetic SNP, they could be under methylators, but on the other hand, they could be over methylators. They can happen in both ways. So it's more important to look at the methylation status, not just the genetic SNPs. So the elevated blood histamine levels is going to indicate under methylation, and a low histamine is going to be an evidence of over methylation. Some other evidence for you may be when you have those histamine reactions, what's happening in your body. So if you have a lot of allergies, or if you eat certain foods, you know, this is in relation to the amount of DAO that's in your gut, etc. You might see yourself get more of those allergies and those reactions. So this is all important stuff to take into account and to look at things as an individual, okay? Instead of just putting blanket approaches. Now, whether you are an undermethylator or an overmethylator really determines on whether you respond to traditional therapies for mental health. And in fact, some medications can exacerbate the problem, really affecting you genetically. So it's really important that you're working with someone who is looking at you as an individual and who understands these levels of methylation. Now, I don't pretend to be a mental health expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm just an educator here to give you some coaching advice of where to look to for the right answers for yourself instead of getting distracted. Now, there's no doubt that therapy and inner work and discovering some of the reasons why you have these issues to begin with is a very important part of the process. But I think it's really important for those watching who have mental health issues to understand this is literally a chemical reaction that's going on in your body, and that your body isn't getting what it needs to express itself in its best way. And that is not your fault. You are not broken, and it can be helped. And there is hope, especially for people who've tried some traditional models and it hasn't gotten them where they want to go. So I just want to encourage you, if you want to know more about this, and I can point you in the direction to a great video that kind of goes into depth about methylation, your individual genetic SNPs, and how it affects your mental health. I'd love to point you in that direction. And also, if you're interested in mineral testing, which really is a huge foundation, now that part I can do with you. I can go into depth of what minerals you're lacking, what you need, and how those things affect mental health. I also want to mention really quickly that heavy metals play a part here. Okay, heavy metals play a part in your mental health. So when you have heavy metals in your body that are being stored in your brain, specifically mercury, it can really lead to mental health issues, as well as really low levels of lithium that I can also see on the hair mineral analysis testing. The other thing that can really affect mental health would be hidden copper toxicity, or just copper bioavailability and copper toxicity on the whole, which are all things that I address through doing hair mineral analysis with you. So I would say if you're overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, that you reach out to me and we talk about doing a basic hair minerals test for you and getting you on that path. And I also love to do the inner work with people to help them start looking at certain parts of themselves. If you are really deep in mental health issues and are on multiple medications and things like that right now, no shame in that, but you really need to get the proper support. And I can help direct you to those people that I believe will be able to support you in that. So you can reach out to me if you're in that situation too. And I'd love to be of assistance and encouragement to you. So I just thought it was really important to bring this to light today, because I think it's an issue that affects a lot of people and there's a lot of shame around it. And you can start with some basic changes to get your body to express itself better. And it's really individual. It can't be across the board. Anybody who's giving you across the board advice that everybody should do this, this, or this is just not educated in the right way, because it really does need to be individual. And I know that's hard for some people and overwhelming, but I would rather give you the truth of the direction you need to go instead of distracting you with this, this, or this. Okay, so I encourage you to look into proper testing before anything. Even before you go on medication, there are genetic tests that will tell you what meds are better for you than others. Okay, there's no shame in needing medication. It's just a matter of finding the right one for your body and understanding that certain ones can exacerbate your problems and really make it difficult for you to even feel any hope at all. So I just wanted to bring a voice to that. It's crucial you understand your individual body and you don't look at yourself as broken, but know there's hope to fix the chemical reaction going on inside of you. And that's all I have to say today. So thank you for joining me for another Feeling Fab Friday. My goal is to make sure that you feel fabulous in your life. And that's a combination of, I believe, physiological changes to get your body to express itself the best, and emotional, spiritual support that also can come together and make you feel alive and whole. And that's why I call it the Sozo method, because it's not just a physical healing, it is an emotional, spiritual healing as well. And I love to be part of your journey in that. So reach out to me if you have any questions. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.